It's me. It's me. It's not PLD. It's Richard-Erik Jarvi,
And I'm Matty Gunner, and welcome to Class Action.
the classiest movie show on the interwebs.
And as you can see, PLD couldn't be bothered to show up to this episode. But we wouldn't leave you guys hanging. May the jury rise for the Honorable Judge PJ Campbell. What's up, buddy?
Hello, friends. It's good to be here. I'm very excited to hang out with you guys in light of the fact that the very dishonorable PLD couldn't even be bothered to be here.
Yep.
He's in the chat though. He's in the chat. He's trying to get his honor back.
Yep.
This fucking guy goes on vacation and then he's like, "Look, man, I'm gonna be in the chat. I'm not actually gonna be here. Go be with your family. Like, actually pretend to do the honorable thing. This is the dishonorable." The most dishonest. Like, come on, go do something fun. Stop being here.
Yeah, it's like actually go be. If you're gonna be on vacation, go be on vacation. Like, don't worry about us. We may talk shit about you a little bit here and there, but
mostly.
But on the case for today is a movie I know is very dear to PJ's heart. And a movie that I actually rewatched because of PJ. John Carter versus Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time.
I'm very much surprised that we picked this topic. I was so sure that I was gonna, at some point down the line, would have to force this on this group. And you guys pretty much pitched this one yourself.
Yeah,
I'm impressed.
I literally was thinking about, because I wanted to do John Carter versus something. But I thought John Carter versus Star Wars might be a bit much. What's a couple rungs down? Prince of Persia.
I feel like there's something really great about this idea that we're kind of comparing two very disastrous box office bombs for Disney, where it was like, please give us a new franchise. Well, that didn't work. Let's try the other one. Well, that didn't work. And that continued with Lone Ranger. Like, there was this whole period where Disney was trying so hard. And the thing is that, like, some of these are actually pretty good. Others are not. And so these two actually make a lot of sense, though, because, you know, there's something to be said about two movies that take place in a desert type setting that are supposed to be like these kind of grand scale epics. One based on one of the all-time great sci-fi novels and franchises, another one based on a very popular video game franchise. Like, they're both coming from very distinctive places, so it just makes sense to put these together.
And the heroes and the leads look very similar as well. They're even like identical. The picture that you just pulled up, like, both got long hair, both ripped, both got these, like, I don't know, what do you call them, rags or like the costumes on them. Yeah. Very similar, like, main actor wise.
So I was thinking about this earlier, actually. Do you guys think that John Carter is the Dune before we got Dune? The newer version of Dune?
Yeah, honestly. And I mean, we'll kind of get into it as we're talking about it. But the fascinating thing for me is that John Carter, for all intents and purposes, is like the original sci-fi tale. And without it, we didn't have Dune. We didn't have Star Wars. We didn't have a lot of the stuff that we love. The problem is that then the stuff that we already love used a lot of those elements. And so once you got to John Carter, it was kind of like a retread in a way, which is a bummer, because I actually think it's no like real secret that I really adore this movie. So I'm very excited to talk about it, but it's just everything borrowed from it. Like, that was the whole thing. And that's why it continues to be like something we talk about. Edgar Rice Burroughs created the sci-fi genre. And then everyone else was like, well, it's great, so we're going to pull from it.
Was John Carter written before Dune?
Yeah, it was written in 83, I think.
Oh, gee, wow, it's that old.
Oh, no, it came out in the early 1900s. Like, this was a very early, like, July 1912.
Wow. I'm way off.
Like,
shows how much I know.
Let's just like set the stage here, is that these started as like chapters in a magazine that Edgar Rice Burroughs was like handing in chapter after chapter. And I think there's 11 books altogether now. I own like hardcovers that have all of them collected. And this is the OG sci-fi story. Like, everything that we love about sci-fi comes from here.
But is it sci-fi though? It feels like, well, actually,
so.
that's a good point, because if it's like old, like that old sci-fi feels more like fantasy.
Yeah.
It feels more like a fantasy novel than a sci-fi novel. But now that you think of it, like if it's in the early 20th century, that's pretty much what sci-fi was for them.
Exactly. And then Lucas, of course, borrowed the high fantasy elements for Star Wars. Star Wars is not science fiction; it's science fantasy.
It's Kurosawa mixed with, you know, John Carter mixed with like spaghetti
the Joseph
westerns.
Campbell story.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, Lucas pulled from everything he loved from his childhood. Pulp serials, pulp storytelling, Kurosawa, like everything around him that he loved, he took and put in a blender and made Star Wars. It's the same way Tarantino literally just puts shit in a blender and makes his own movie versions of all this stuff that he likes. It's kind of fascinating, to be honest.
Well, there was a movie where it said, I think it was Entourage, where they made a joke about Quentin Tarantino always steals from the best. This is the next guy he's gonna steal from.
Yeah,
I don't know if you've seen
100%.
Entourage, but that was pretty much what they said.
I know Ronda Rousey makes an appearance in it, but that's about it.
Okay, why is Lestrina saying in the chat that he misses PLD?
Yeah.
What the hell is
What's
this?
going
That
on here?
feels like
Do you guys have
treason.
beef? Do you have beef?
No, I'm so nice to John. I don't understand. What have I done to you? I thought we were friends,
maybe he
Lestrina.
just wants you and PLD, and me and Matty are the
No,
extras here.
So I feel like this is an
fucking
insurrection.
love fest in
I
the
know.
chat.
I know. We're gonna need our own committee for
At least for
what is it?
Christo's here.
Oh, Christo, I always mention ripped bodies and long hair. That's the two things that I want and don't have. So obviously I'm going to mention
Matty.
them.
Yes, Matt Thomas, you missed the rebrand of the better version of this show, starring 3 dudes who are way too handsome to be in one room together.
Yep. Yep. And
Well, this is how you get an invite back. So.
Did Paul hack Lestrina? I don't know. Maybe.
I mean, it
We'll
makes
know.
sense. Look at how they're talking to each other. I mean, that's very clear.
And
Saying that Paul's a beautiful
Lestrina
human
hasn't
being.
quoted Fast and Furious once, so
Yeah.
you know what? He may
I
have
think he
hacked it.
did.
I think he did.
I think he might have.
We should do something with Fast
Paul,
and
give
Furious
John his
down the
phone
line.
back. We should do what?
We should do something with Fast and the Furious at some
We should
point.
do. We
I don't
should.
think we've done anything from these even before. Like we
Vin Diesel
rebirth.
versus The Rock. Let's settle
Yeah,
that.
that's
debate
the
once
one
and for all.
I really want to do. Yeah.
Honestly,
guys.
like best
guys.
addition to the franchise, Statham versus The Rock. That could be fun.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. I like that.
Sorry, you're already hatching some new topics here. Just a heads up, we will be spoiling Prince of Persia and John Carter if you haven't seen them. We always gotta stress that just in case.
Movies
Yeah,
that
they're
came
both
out
at
how
least-
long ago?
Yeah, I was gonna say both movies that are at least a decade old, but just in case you're unaware,
You
we are
gotta
gonna
do-
spoil them.
So as we said, these two movies are the ultimate. I like to call them the coulda, woulda, shouldas. Like that they could have been big, massive franchises, but unfortunately, just
Me
didn't.
too, I know.
Yeah,
Dipper agrees.
I
Dipper
wish
agrees?
I had my corgi here for now. I would have. She
But,
would have barked in as well.
so we're talking about a movie that we know PJ loves. We're gonna get into our first game, which we normally play, which is what would Ed Harris play? But because of our esteemed co-host here today, we're gonna mix it up a little bit. We're gonna mix
Wait,
it up
what?
a little bit.
Wait! This was not discussed.
Yeah, yes, it
Oh,
was.
It was absolutely discussed.
It was absolutely discussed.
What am I missing?
We are going to change it to who would Bruce Campbell play?
Was that a real thing? I thought you guys were joking.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh
that
no,
was a
it's
real
absolutely a real thing.
Yeah, I did not prep for that. Oh shit.
thing.
I mean, look, I feel like there's two very obvious answers
All right.
in this, though, right? Like, is that just me? I feel like there's two very obvious answers in these movies.
yeah.
Yeah, but they're best if they aren't obvious, though.
Yeah, but at the same time, is it though? Because like
Right.
you can almost see how good it would have been. And honestly, had Bruce Campbell been in John Carter, maybe it would have made $1 billion. You don't know.
I think it might have done.
what is it about Bruce Campbell that you love so much? You gotta break it down because the people might not know
Look,
that.
man. Look, okay. So for as long as I can remember, Bruce Campbell has always kind of like been a presence in my life. My parents loved that show, The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., when I was a kid. And so I would watch it. And then like Hercules and Xena, he was such a major part of it.
Yes.
And as I started getting into movies, the Evil Dead movies, everything with Sam Raimi, the Spider-Man movies, it was like, hey, that's that dude that I kept recognizing. And so I started to watch all the stuff that he had done. And I was like, Bruce Campbell is like maybe the most charismatic, on the nose B actor of all time. And he's so in on the joke that made me love him more. And so I just kept going back and forth on all the stuff that he was involved in. And I spent like the best part of my early years as a teenager literally just watching everything he was in. And I have loved him ever since. He's legitimately one of my favorite actors because I think no one quite does it like him. And I really do think, and I'm this is not hyperbole, he should have been nominated for an Oscar for his performance in Evil Dead 2. And it just goes to show how badly that the Academy doesn't represent and love horror. Like if you go back and watch it, it's one of the greatest slapstick performances of all time.
Yeah.
The physical movements, the physical comedy, everything about it is just so great. The fighting scene where he's fighting his hand is legitimately one of the greatest scenes ever put on film. And I really love that him and Sam Raimi have this relationship where he's like, how can I just fuck with Bruce and like put him through the most weird ringer of all time in every movie he does, like even to, you know, spoiler alert for Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness.
I was going to bring that up,
yeah, like his whole sequence in that movie is just fighting his hand again. It's such a great commentary on their relationship, and I strive for the day that my relationship with PLD is that good that I could just be like torturing him on camera for other people.
I feel like you two are getting to that point. From listening to two mediocre white dudes, I feel like you two are getting close to that point.
Honestly, probably.
We don't get to see it on camera because you guys are audio only, so we don't actually get to see it. But I feel like you two are getting pretty close. And William Harold here with a very appropriate comment. What's not to love about Bruce Campbell?
Exactly.
Well, that was a good answer. That was a better one than I expected.
There you go.
It's the correct answer.
It is the correct answer. There's only one
Bruce
answer.
Campbell away. Okay.
I
think I've got. I'm pretty much preparing this off the cuff, but I've got.
Okay. You want to go first then?
Definitely not.
Okay. PJ, you want to take us away with let's start with John Carter then. Who would you cast Bruce Campbell as in John Carter?
So, as much as I adore everything about Willem Dafoe's performance as Tars, there's something to be said. There's something to be said about the idea of Bruce Campbell trying to do this role that I think just would have been so good. It's actually kind of the perfect role for him because if you think about it, especially when it comes to like these bigger A-list sci-fi movies, he's always better in like a co-lead capacity and not leading them. So I can just see like a Burn Notice style of Bruce Campbell playing it up with Taylor Kitsch. And there's something to be said about him delivering a lot of those lines of dialogue that Dafoe has to do. But I also like when he actually gets to be dramatic. And so I think there's something about his role as Tars that is so beautiful and kind of moving. And I would have loved to see Bruce actually trying to do that because he doesn't get to do it a lot. But there's also a lot of comedy to the Tars role because there's a real like fish out of water back and forth element that he has with Taylor Kitsch that I think Bruce would have played off of really well.
Because Willem Dafoe is one of my favorite parts of John Carter, so that's the only reason why I responded the way I did. But yeah, it would definitely. But does Willem do it in a comedic way?
There's moments of comedicness, but it's more at the expense of John, right? Like he's the straight-laced version of what's happening around them, because in any duo, there's always like the straight man. And I think Bruce would be good at being the straight man, but with that like sense of unirony to it. Best way to describe it.
Alrighty, Bruce Campbell as Tars. Also, whenever anyone says Tars, I immediately think of Interstellar and the chunky robot.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Tars. That was Tars in case, right?
Yeah. Nicely done. Nicely done.
Jarvi, do you want to go next?
Yeah, all right. So John Carter, since I know Bruce Campbell mostly from like these cameo type of parts, I would put him as the Thurn that Mark Strong played. I want him to just appear somewhere, do some badass shit, do some magic, then have a more like a humorous, I don't know, one-liner bit there, and then just fuck off again into the ether. Like sort of be the mastermind. He doesn't have a lot to do, but he would bring like a little more levity and humor to the part. Also, the fact that he just cameos into scenes whenever he wants to.
Hell yeah.
Damn it, you took my one.
Oh, did I?
Yeah, you did. I think if I can't have that, I kind of like, for some reason, I could see him as Powell, as Bryan Cranston's character as well.
Cranston was so damn good, though.
Yeah, that was my other decision, because similarly, like, I can see him fitting into that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that kind of gruff, like, war veteran officer kind of role. So, part of me, I can just see him in it.
Yeah, I 100% can. And again, to like what Jarvi said, right? It's the comedic Bruce Campbellness of it all, and like he's there, and then he gets to like fuck off real quick. There's some really with the editing of it, like I can actually see him really pulling it off. I think it could be very fun.
Well, oh yeah, you can't kid around with PLD and Ed Harris. That's
correct, Maxwell.
Oh, recast him as John Carter?
No, he's just saying that John Carter is the winner here. I see.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well,
we will get to our snap judgment in a moment, but in the meanwhile, let's switch to Prince of Persia. PJ, who would you have Bruce Campbell play in Prince of Persia: Sands of Time?
There's one actor in this movie that I really, really love. We're gonna get into it about.
Oh, you have my pick, I'm sure.
Cast. Yeah, it's Sheik Amir, played by Alfred Molina. I love the character. Alfred Molina is the best one in the movie. Don't get me wrong, but it's a very comedic role. It would let Bruce lean in on the best of being Bruce in a bigger movie with other people around him. Because Molina is the best part of the movie, I also think that means Bruce would have been the best part of the movie. So that's
an interesting approach, though.
Yeah, like you could almost see him delivering the same dialogue, and that's what I was thinking about before we got into the game and things like that. Is which of the roles do you think he would pull off, and which ones can you hear him saying the dialogue? Which ones do you think you can see him doing it his own way, and who he bounces off of in the movie? Because you have to think which characters he's interacting with. That makes the most sense to me for Bruce to be that character in that role in this world.
Yeah, I agree. I'll just go into mine. Mine would be either him or Prince Tuss.
Which one was Prince Tuss? There's like Tuss, Kus, Bis.
He's the one who takes over from the king.
Yeah.
Right.
Played by Richard Coyle.
Yeah, Richard Coyle was damn good. He was the best one of the lot, but of the siblings, I mean.
So Jarvi, your one? Who are you taking?
So I couldn't, because PJ, you picked like the best two guys to recast. That's why
I try my best.
I'm going the complete opposite way. I'm recasting Ben Kingsley. He was
heartless,
so unbearable in this movie.
Not wrong.
Ben Kingsley is a streaky actor. This was definitely one of his weaker performances. But I do want the more serious Bruce Campbell in this role, because I feel like Ben Kingsley had these unintentional funny moments. I want Bruce Campbell to try to play this completely legitimate and totally serious.
I don't think those comedic moments were his performance. I think those were
exactly
from the movie itself. Okay, cool. So let's get into the trial then, and we'll give what we call our snap judgments, which is kind of like our predictions. Who we think is going to win this one? I mean, I can only guess as to what you two are going to pick. You may throw a curveball, but my snap judgment is I think John Carter is going to win this very easily. PJ?
Yeah. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm coming in here as like maybe the most impartial juror imaginable. I feel like this is a pretty easy knockout. it's no secret how much I love this movie. And after rewatching Prince of Persia today for the first time in I couldn't tell you how long, I have feelings. So I'm very excited to talk about it.
Jarvi, you're known as the the sympathy vote on this show. You
I have feelings for Jim Arterton, but still, well, as much as I'd love to play the devil's advocate here, I think it's going to go to John Carter. Okay. But we won't know that for sure before we get into the categories.
Yes, it is the categories that decide everything. We have come up with 5 potential categories with a 6th in case of a hung jury, which we probably won't need, but it's there just in case. So, Jarvi, why don't you take us away with our first category?
All right. So the first one is better lead. So we're pitching Jake Gyllenhaal against Taylor Kitsch. All right. Both got great hair. Both are ripped. Both have wooden dialogue to deliver, which is actually surprising, taking Jake Gyllenhaal's range, which he has way more of. But what Jake lacks here is consistency. And that's in a weird way because Kitsch is consistently one note throughout. Jake has his ups and downs. He's pretty good at times. And then there's like moments where you're like, holy fuck, what the hell are you doing? Like the conversation that he's having with Gemma at the very end where they're talking about love and adventure or something. Yeah. His delivery, if it just if anyone wants to, that's all, like a fist pump ball in itself, how bad Jake's acting is. Just cue it up to the very last scene where Gemma and Jake are talking. It's horrendous.
If there's one male actor that shouldn't have chemistry issues with a woman, it's Jake Gyllenhaal.
Actually, like their chemistry in a way, like there are truly great moments. There are great moments, but we'll get to that. But when we're actually picking the better lead, and this is one of the ones that I thought was going to Jake, but consistency-wise, and something about Kitsch's way that he plays the when he's in the when he's on Earth, he sort of really fit into that role. I don't know why. It's I'm giving this one to Kitsch and John Carter.
Okay, PJ.
Yeah, I'll be honest. We were all kind of talking about this as I was watching it. I know that normally you guys don't discuss things as before you go in, but I was kind of floored how little I liked Jake Gyllenhaal in my revisit of Prince of Persia. He's normally someone who's like real charismatic, but everything about this performance feels really stilted. Like he was not really made to do this kind of a movie. Like nothing in Jake's filmography screams blockbuster action star unless he's doing Ambulance, where he's like really leaning in on the Michael Bay of it all. So something about this performance feels really stilted, which is funny because I know that Kitsch's performance feels a little one note, but that one note fits the character. So it's a little bit more likable and you feel for him. And like at least he delivers like the fish out of water elements, that there is some fish out of water, if you will, with Jake having to learn about the dagger and the time travel of it all, but he doesn't deliver it in a way that feels real. And it just feels goofy. And for a movie that is trying to take itself seriously and not really leaning in on like pulp campiness outside of maybe Melina's character, it doesn't land. It's a very odd choice. It's a very odd performance. He doesn't really act very well off the people around him. Him and Gemma have no chemistry, which doesn't really help how often they're together in the movie. So for me, Kitsch kind of takes it hands down because at least it's a consistent performance that I can get behind.
Wow, this is the one category where I thought Prince was gonna take it.
And I'll go with mine. I thought when I started, how can you argue with Jake Gyllenhaal? Like, if you look at the two bodies of work next to each other, Jake should win this. I mean, Taylor was Gambit, which woof. He was
let's be fair here.
Saturday Night Lights. Sunday night?
X-Men Origins Wolverine. There's a lot of problems with that movie. I can't lay all of it on Kitsch's performance as Gambit.
Yeah, I agree. Can't put all of it on there, but I can put some of it on there.
Yeah, it's fair. I'm just saying I'm not going to put all of it at his feet.
Yeah. The Covenant. Oh, my favorite.
Love The Covenant.
My favorite B movie, but he is definitely not the best part about it. I believe he was in Lone Survivor as well and 21 Bridges. So like he has those action roles down. But I ultimately put it to I prefer Taylor Kitsch as Gambit to Jake Gyllenhaal as the Prince. So that's
Wait,
saying
as
something.
Gambit?
Yeah.
Like actually as Gambit? Wow.
Yeah. I much more enjoyed Taylor Kitsch as Gambit than I did of Jake as the Prince.
Man,
So
Jake's one of my top actors, like working at the moment. It's so hard to see this happen.
Look, like Jake has a great track record. Like Donnie Darko was such a huge movie for him.
Southpaw.
Come at right, like October Sky. Again, Ambulance. I thought he was great in Ambulance.
He's
made so many incredible movies. And Taylor Kitsch made Battleship. Like these two guys' filmographies could not be farther apart. Battleship. The one based on a fucking Hasbro game, because apparently everyone was like, look, we're going to take a fucking board game. We're going to try to turn it into a movie, because Ridley Scott, for almost a decade, was trying to make Monopoly into a movie. And I think there's still a Monopoly movie currently in production, which no one is fucking asking for a Monopoly movie. I can promise you, no one wants a Monopoly movie.
Cluedo's
here
next.
We are. Look, make fucking Clue again. Do anything that actually makes sense. But a Battleship movie where, by the way, the aliens shoot missiles that actually look like the pigs from the board game. Fuck you. Fuck you so much for someone at Universal being like, look, everyone wants a Battleship game, so let's go ahead and do it with the pegs and everything. Fuck you.
I actually enjoy watching
so
Battleship.
much.
I actually enjoy watching that movie
Jarvi.
for all the wrong reasons. For all the wrong reasons. But it's a fun watch. It's a fun watch. It's a fun watch. It's like Transformers meets another bad movie.
It's basically like someone told Peter Berg, hey, do you want to make a Michael Bay movie?
Yeah,
based on a board game.
Exactly.
Fuck you guys. Like, no one was asking for this. No one. And I'm not someone who says that movies need to be like a need, because look, every movie is not needed. That was a not needed movie.
Liam Neeson, Alexander Skarsgård, Rihanna.
And
what was Andy Roddick's ex-wife's name? The bombshell.
I can't remember.
There's this.
And here's the thing to your point about the Liam Neeson of it all. That was when Liam Neeson was taking every action role around him, because
that was his Steven Seagal face.
Yeah, because we know. Look, what happened to him was super tragic. And I will always feel like horrible about what happened with his wife, but he just threw himself into every movie that was thrown to him. And it turned out to be every bad B action movie possible. Some of them were fun. Some of them had Ed Harris. And we all know how we feel about Ed Harris in this situation. So, Battleship exists. Please, for the love of God, do not watch it. And me ranting and raving about this is going to push someone to watch it. So there we go.
If you do watch Battleship, cue up the sequence where they're arming up the old battleship, like the one that had like the old veterans on it, like the actual battleship. That's a really cool sequence where AC/DC comes on. That's the fist bump moment.
I mean,
there.
that's the best. That's the best moment, because AC/DC forever.
Yeah.
Okay, so
this is PJ. This is why we brought you in. This is what I needed. I needed a side mission about Battleship.
I'm glad that I could be here for this, and it's probably just going to get worse from here.
Good.
Glad to be here. Guys.
That's what we want, especially when we get to the third category. I feel like we're going to have a lot of fun with that.
Oof. But, yes, sir.
So that was we're agreeing that was a clean sweep for Taylor.
Yeah, there we go.
God, Taylor
look,
Kitsch,
I think this is.
Yikes.
Let's be real here. This is what Taylor Kitsch has been waiting for all his life, for this to come down to who's the better actor, him or Jake Gyllenhaal. And 3 white dudes on the internet were like, you know what, Taylor Kitsch, your performance in John Carter beats Jake Gyllenhaal.
Which would you rather want now? Like, if you had to swap Prince of Persia with Taylor Kitsch or John Carter with Jake Gyllenhaal?
I feel like John Carr with Jake.
Honestly, though, here's the thing, and I don't think we talk about this enough, is that with the Friday Night Lights of it all, Andrew Stanton was watching Friday Night Lights, and he saw Taylor Kitsch, and he goes, that is who I want as my John Carter. And we're going to get to the director portion of this in a bit, but I think that speaks volumes to someone so passionate about what they want to do and what they want to see on screen that he chased the one person he thought could do it. And I think that that's why I couldn't swap it, because at the end of the day, I really believe in Stanton's love for this and his passion for the character. And I think that that really matters.
After Obi-Wan, I will believe in Andrew Stanton for anything that they put him in for. So,
God, fucking PLD in the chat again. Look at this shit.
I knew he was going to bring it up, though.
I have to invoke the Ed Harris clause. Ever since Jake had the interview where he declared his love for Ed, he can do no wrong. Just be advised. I mean, point.
God, I hate you so much, PLD.
Here's a good question. Here's a good question from William Harold, though. Maybe this could convince you. Bruce Campbell's the Monopoly Man.
I mean, look, I wouldn't say no, but I think Kevin Hart is currently attached to it, which is like the most terrifying prospect. I'd have to look into that. I think Kevin Hart is currently attached to Monopoly.
That means The Rock is going to be close behind.
The Rock's
The Rock.
The car.
The Rock as the Monopoly Man. That's what we all need, is The Rock as the Monopoly Man.
I like it. I think.
Give that man a fucking mustache. Let's go.
I think he had a fake mustache in some movie. Was that? Wait, what was the one where
that 70s show? Right? When he played his dad, didn't he have one?
Yeah, he did.
So
The Rock was on a 70s show?
Yeah, he plays his dad. There's an episode where Eric goes to see The Rock's father at a wrestling match, and then they meet him afterwards, and The Rock is playing his father.
Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, I fucking love that 70s show. So
all right,
me too.
We gotta,
I can't wait for that 80s show.
Yep, same.
Let's continue with our next category, and now we're talking about better supporting cast. Better supporting cast. Who wants to take this one?
I mean, I can start with this.
Yeah, go for it.
Go ahead.
DJ.
Look, there's no easy or nice way to say this. Prince of Persia's entire cast is fucking sleepwalking through this movie outside of Alfred Molina. Whereas John Carter's entire cast is actually super good and super interesting, down to the fact that you have Willem Dafoe as Tars, Daryl Sabra playing Ned, and he's like actually very good. Dominic West understands the performance of his character of Sab so well that he's like the mustache twirling pulp villain, and it really works. Mark Strong is very good. Lynn Collins as Deja Thoris almost steals the entire movie. Bryan Cranston is fucking memorable as Colin Powell, as Colonel Powell. Like, this movie has
Thomas
so
Hayden
many...
Church as well.
Yeah. Like, and he's so good in it. And they're all so good in it. And they're all so memorable. They actually make Taylor better because they're all so good. And that's what's so funny, is that he has to be on the level of everyone around him because everyone is pushing him to be better. Is it one note? Maybe, but at least they're pushing him to like meet on their level. I think Deja is actually one of the best female lead characters in any fantasy film in at least a decade. And we don't really talk about her because the movie bombed. That alone gives them like a hard win over this. Ben Kingsley couldn't be bothered to actually show up in Prince of Persia. It's a boring performance where he's very trying to be hammy and it just doesn't work. Toby Kebbell is a red flag. Right.
Let's be fair, he did it for a paycheck.
He 100% did it for a paycheck. Toby Kebbell is a red flag for almost every movie he joins. Every once in a while, he's in something that's good. Like, I like Kong Skull Island, and I like the War for the Planet of the Apes, or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. The point is that every once in a while he's in something good, but the problem is that almost everything else he's in is bad, including another Disney movie he made with Alfred Molina, which was The Sorcerer's Apprentice, which was another bigger bomb that was supposed to be a franchise.
That could be in the conversation of these two movies. And honestly, also, surprise, Jarvi loves that movie.
I actually like that movie too, and I think we could put it up against Lone Ranger as another one of Disney's disastrous franchise starters that bombed at the box office. But Kebbell is known for picking terrible projects that usually underperform in some capacity. That alone tells me everything I need to know about this movie. like Toby Kebbell was an up and coming person that we were all excited to see, and then he ended up just continually making terrible fucking choices. That dude's in fucking Bloodshot. Come on.
Ugh, I fucking hate that movie.
I know, and that's my
So
point.
bad.
Like, Melina is the only standout for me in the entire movie, because Melina is the only one who decided, I'm going to go full camp and I'm going to have fun with the performance, and it works because for his character it works. It's kind of like John Rhys Davies as Sala in the Indiana Jones movies. Like, that's kind of what I relate his character to.
Yeah, I see
and it's
that.
a good performance.
For sure.
And it's super fun, and that's the only memorable thing. Gemma is gorgeous and she's wonderful to watch, but like, there's nothing there for that character. There just isn't. So for me, it's like a real easy win for John Carter, because they're all memorable and they're all good.
Yeah, and
Wait,
I feel
can I
Yeah, go
piggyback off of what PJ said? The one part where I'd argue with you is Gemma Arterton as was it Tamina?
Yeah.
I feel like she has like very similarly, like she's fragile, elegant, strong, but has like a lot of sass to her. So I think
she's a
her
princess.
performance very much like elevates whatever Jake is trying to do in that one. And I feel like Gemma has
Something has to.
one of the greatest like explosion of emotion moments. It happens at the final scene, which we probably will talk about in another category. But she sacrifices herself so that Dastan can continue his adventure. And there's like, they're holding hands. She's trying to let go. She says, I wish we could have been together. Tries to shake the hand, then starts like crying and screaming. It's such a human moment where first she thinks, sure, I'm going to sacrifice myself, then gets terrified by it. That's like one real moment that I really teared up at. So I think Gemma and Deja are actually way more closer. But as when it comes to the other ones, yeah, Ben Kingsley, as we said, not very good. Richard Coyle, who plays Tuss, I feel like gave a really solid performance as well. Probably the best one out of all of the siblings and kings and whoever else are in there. And Alfred Molina, of course. Like I feel like his role it's like the easiest one to play off of. Like he just gets like, do whatever you want, do what you do best. Just give us something cuckoo. Doesn't have to carry a whole lot of weight.
As soon as he started talking about taxes, I was like, yeah, this is
and he makes a dick joke. He makes a dick joke and it works.
Yep,
it works.
In a Disney movie.
Exactly. It works. And you forgive him. And it's great. So also one actor from John Carter that needs to be praised is Kieran Hines. And he's back and forth with Lynn Collins when they're like at the very start of the movie where he's telling her, you got to marry Dominic West's character. They really go at it. Like you can tell these actors are like fully into the script and delivering the dialogue. Dominic West, though, I don't think he was that good, but he really didn't need to be, right? Because he was supposed to be the puppet that's being controlled by the Therns.
Which is why it's such a fun performance, because ultimately he does that very well. Like, at least for me, especially when they keep being like, don't kill anyone. He's like, well, what's the point of using this if I can't use the power? Like, it's he knows what movie he's in. And for that alone, I have to give it to him. Like, he knows what he's doing as the villain.
But Dafoe by far is the best of both movies for me.
Here's my thing about Willem Dafoe. It's a small bugbear, and it's not even him really. It may be down to like his agent or something. He is consistently in giving great world-class performances in movies I feel like should have been bigger. John Carter being one of them. Boondock Saints being another one.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
The Northman being the most recent one.
John Wick, that one did pretty well. He was in John Wick, right?
Yeah, he was in the first
he's
one.
in the first one. But hey, John Wick was so good that we are now getting the fourth film. So at least in that,
with
we
Donnie
can give
Yen.
him exactly, with Donnie Yen. So like, credit where credit's due. That movie made bank enough to continue a franchise. So at least people saw that movie.
Yeah. Okay, Jarvi, do you want to move on to our third?
I don't think you went, Matty.
Yeah, I said John Carter. John Carter's getting my vote for this.
Okay.
One. Just think you can't argue with this supporting cast. You look at the names on there alone, and it's just like Okay,
It's a sweep. It's a fucking
Yeah.
sweep.
it's a sweep.
Yeah, this is better take something. Come on, Prince. All right, third category. We have better visuals and action sequences. At first, we just had better visuals, but I figured we gotta talk about the action sequences a little bit. You can just, if you prep Matty just the visuals, talk about the visuals and just work in the action sequence and see if you want to. You don't have to.
So, other than the locations that it was shot in and the moments where the prince uses the dagger, where Dastan uses the dagger to go back in time, there weren't a lot of visuals that kind of struck me as wow in Prince of Persia. Other than like you see the hourglass, that looks kind of cool. But again, I feel like this is just another sweep for John Carter. I mean, the action sequences. I hate a lot of modern action sequence editing. Like I've spoken about it so many times. It's
And we
like
were talking about this before the show.
right, and it's like a lot of you go back to a lot of like the older martial arts movies. Like it's like they aren't afraid to let the action sequences tell a part of the story. But with a lot of the more modern ones, they're like, it's almost like they don't really know what to do with it. So they just cut it up constantly. They just like snip it and cut it loads of times. So you're just like, okay, that was a thing. And I feel like that's evident more than ever in Prince of Persia. So
They learned every wrong lesson from Transformers 2007, where they had to cut around the effects to try to make sure that the dodgy effects weren't always seen. So they were editing a lot. That kinetic energy mixed with Bourne being so popular, they were like, well, that's what everyone wants. No, it's not. Like, I miss when Lethal Weapon would just sit on an action sequence. The fight at the end of that movie is one of the all-time great finales to any action film. The Raid 2, these are newer movies, but it's the same thing. Like
the kitchen
camera
fight in the Raid.
Yeah. Dude, right. Or to your point, older martial arts movies, Drunken Master 2 has got some of the all-time great action sequences ever put on film. Super Cop.
This is why we bring PJ.
It's just true, and it's so fucking frustrating. I'm just gonna piggyback off what you're saying, because when I was watching Prince of Persia, there was some sequences that looked really great. But then there was a bunch of moments where they just started editing and cutting around and trying to cut corners, and it was really, really frustrating. And I couldn't understand why they were doing it, because it was really taking away from what should have been a really cool moment. I don't know if it was that they were trying to hide it wasn't Jake, or if they were trying to, I mean, it probably was, or they were just trying to make it feel more kinetic than it was. And it really kind of ruins the momentum of a lot of those sequences. John Carter, on the other hand, has arguably, to me, one of the greatest action sequences ever put on film. And it's the montage where he decides to go up against all of the monsters, and Woulda stays with him as that Giacchino score starts to like ramp up, and it's cut in between the shots of him burying his wife and his kids because they were killed. And it's so heartbreaking, and the score is so amazing. And it's just watching him stand there, and he goes, I let this happen once. I can't let it happen again. I need to rescue the people I care about. And he just stands there as they overcome him, and the score is sweeping. I'm getting chills talking about it. I love the sequence. It brings me to tears almost every time I watch it, because I think it's such a powerful moment, and it's something we don't see a lot of in modern filmmaking, a moment that is so emotional and raw in the middle of an action sequence. Because to what you were saying, Matty, people don't let action sequences speak as a part of the story a lot of the time, but this one did. And that lead up to that moment, and when he's like telling Woulda to leave, and Woula's like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And like shakes its head and like looks out and just stands there. And those shots of Woulda like jumping over him, trying to knock the things away from him as he's standing there, slicing and dicing. It's so fucking good. And that's one sequence in a movie that has a bunch of pretty great action sequences. It's a little been there, done that at times, but like you get great beats for Deja Thoris, and like her first action beat next to John is so great. And I always love that line, or maybe you're rescuing me. Like that whole idea that he realizes that they're like, she's so good at what she does. There's so many great moments. And I love the final battle. I think the final battle is really, really fun, and the effects work is really great. And if we're going to talk about the effects, look at the motion capture done on the Thard. Tharks. Like the Tharks look
still
great
hold
in
up.
the movie. Yeah,
10 years old.
I mean,
10 years old.
and every facial expression is seen. Everything is felt. Like the performances are heightened because the effects are still so good, and they really, really landed it. And it was pretty ahead of its time. Like it was right around the time that Apes was still doing it too. But like that's really, really awesome. If you see the pictures of them actually out on stilts and with the mocap stuff on, it's really fucking awesome. Stanton really came to play, and this is Stanton's first movie, by the way, as a live-action director.
Is it
like,
really?
That makes it,
I didn't know that.
That makes it even more impressive. This was the first live-action movie he had ever made. So for that to be like, look at how sweeping it is, look how beautiful it looks. It's again, it's like a no-brainer. It just wins because everything about Prince of Persia is like less exciting. There's some decent moments. They have a great sequence of him in the temple, which they should have had more of, like the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones temple vibes.
When
they
she
should have done
presses
more
down
of that.
and the lights go like
Yeah.
all the way, like yeah.
Yeah, and he's like, but I mean, to the point of this, then the sand is coming down and it looks kind of cheesy when he's like jumping backwards, but it's a great moment, but the effects don't really hold up. I just wish we had seen more of that, like him running along walls and things. It just, there's some decent shots.
Play more to the video game of it.
Yeah, that's what they were trying to, they wanted to try to do, but then they tried to hide it. They were like, well, look, it's a video game. We can't lean too heavy on the video game. But honestly, I wanted more parkour style action than anything else. If anyone's seen District B13.
District B13, I was literally just about to bring that up. Yeah.
Dude,
and
what a
they did
great
that terrible remake, Brick Mansions.
Yeah, I have a story about that, actually, which is very funny that I'll have to actually, you know what? Fuck it. I'll tell you guys here. I saw a test screening of that movie before it came out, and it was like just after Paul Walker had passed away. And the studio was like, we want to try to reach the biggest possible audience. And so we saw this test screening of it, and I got picked for the focus group after, and I will never forget sitting in the focus group, and they're going down the line asking what everyone thought about it. And they got to me, and I was sitting there quiet, and I know like the director was there, and I know a bunch of people were there. And I go, this was an R-rated movie that you guys just cut down to PG-13, didn't you? And they sat there in like stunned silence. And I was like, it's very, very obvious how much you guys cut corners and we're like moving things around to try to edit this down to a PG rating. And it shows. And you guys should really release it in its like final, like its actual R-rated version, because that was the movie that you guys set out to make. And that if this is Paul's last movie, you should really make sure that it's the movie you guys shot, not the one that's going to reach the biggest audience. And sure as shit, when the Blu-ray came out, what was on there but the extended R-rated cut of the movie that had all the action bits that they had cut around put back in.
Yeah. So I guess we have you to thank for the R-rated version then.
I don't want to take full credit, but I mean...
I'm giving it to you.
Thanks.
But like, especially like when you see beat for beat, like the open, and I know we're getting onto a tangent on Brick Mansions here, but fuck it. Like the opening sequence, the opening parkour sequence is literally taken right out from District B13, like where he jumps through the small window at the top. I mean, it is the same actor, but like he jumps through the window at the top. And as someone who like understands fighting and sees fighting sequences from a fighter's perspective in movies, it really, frankly, it pisses me off when I see like really shitty editing done either by not understanding the story and letting it breathe through the action, poor stunt work, which unfortunately it happens, whether it be because of running out of time, limited budget, or the actors just not putting in the work. Iron Fist. And I feel like Prince of Persia really suffered because of that.
Yep. And I just want to bring this all around, by the way, as far as this all is concerned. District B13 was directed by Pierre Morel, who directed Liam Neeson in Taken. Let's just bring this full circle.
Okay. Back to the Liam Neeson of it all.
Yeah.
All right. So you're both going John Carter. Matty, did you?
I'm going John Carter.
Okay. I think the one action sequence that you talked about, PJ, like when he's just thrashing left and right and he's thinking about like his lost family, that moment could have been done like really, it could have looked very silly because he's just pretty much like thrashing everywhere. But it looked really damn good. Like there was weight behind his hits. It looked real because that's a very easy scene to mess up. And like I said before, like 10 years old, it feels like it could have been done. I don't know. Even now, this movie would have held up with its CGI, and a lot of it goes to the creatures. I feel like doing like the spaceships and the moving city, everything's like easier. But doing the creatures, woulda, the white apes, the Tharks, everything, it like you felt like these were real animals, real creatures right there. Prince of Persia had a very video gamey CGI look, and like pun intended on that one. I think the tone actually helps the way the movie looks. Like, and you said it yourself, Matty, when he presses down on the dagger, these are like actually pretty cool scenes, even though the CGI looks like it's straight out of a cartoon or something. And yeah, I feel like the final temple scene had probably the most of CGI, yet it was so damn engaging. That we were talking about this, PJ, when we were watching this. It was, I couldn't look away. It was, I wish we'd gotten more of that, and it was ended.
Probably spent most of the budget on that.
Honestly, probably.
We didn't talk about the Hassansins, which actually, in my opinion, looked pretty damn cool. I freaking hate snakes. I can't stand them. And like the sort of demonic look of them, I think was done pretty well. Also, most of their stuff is pretty much practical effects, but these are still visuals, so I think it kind of counts.
Also, I'd really, yes, number one, fuck snakes. I'd also like to throw out there, because we really haven't brought it up, but there's the great sequence of John in the arena that we really should talk about, because that scene is, number one, it's really great. And the funny thing is that scene is very, like, it's a scene from the books. It is a scene that is so good, even in the books, that George Lucas in Attack of the Clones.
Right. Of course.
Like, he 100% took his entire sequence of putting his heroes inside of an arena, surrounded by people and monsters. They're all chained up, and they have to fight the monsters before help arrives.
That literally just clicked in my brain. Holy shit.
And to me, that is just the sign of something that's so good. And the fact that Stanton was able to take it and then do something, in my opinion, that is as engaging, if not more. I really think that sequence stands out. It's really, really fun. And I know that was actually the sequence that the marketing team really leaned in on a lot of the posters. And I wish that they hadn't, in a way, because I almost think the reveal is so much better once it happens. But like, dude, what a great moment. And I really think it's captured beautifully, especially when he fucking comes out and he's covered in just the blue blood of the ape. Like, dude, what a fucking cool sequence that is. And that leads to him cutting off the head of Thomas Hayden Church's Tal, and like, what a cool moment that is. And the arena fucking erupting once it happens, and realizing that he really is one of them. And even when they realize he is one of them, when the Tharks are watching him for the first time, like when he's hopping up and he's fighting all of everyone on, and just them watching, and Tar is like running out there pointing as they're all looking at it. It's actually inspiring, because, you know, the whole thing is he's been prophesized to arrive. And so for him to be this like savior for them that actually shows up and is as good as they're hoping he is and stuff, it's actually really fucking cool. There's just a lot of really great action sequences in this movie.
Yeah.
It also feels when the Tharks show up, there is a little bit of like Lord of the Rings and Mummy sort of vibes to it. Sort of when the Grand Army arrives out of the sand. I don't know, for a few parts, like right there was kind of the Lord of the Rings atmosphere of it.
I don't recognize those movies.
Yeah, you
fucking damn it, Matty. Here we were having such a great day, and then you had to do that. I thought we were doing so well here.
I love Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings is great.
The one part that we didn't talk about enough, I feel like, is the start of John Carter and the cinematography that's used there, because there's pretty much no CGI there. These visuals, like when he walks into the cantina, sort of the lighting, everything is freaking awesome. Looks straight out of like a Western or something. I'm going John Carter as well.
And that sequence, by the way, has Donna's father from that 70s show as the bartender. to bring that full circle to what we were talking about with the Rock earlier.
It does.
Oh
you're
yeah,
right.
that's him.
It does.
Yeah,
It
he does
100% is.
And he has a perm. Like he has pretty like big hair there as well, or something.
Also, to your point earlier with like that whole sequence with him being chased by the Colonel, and there's some great sweeping moments of the desert, and that whole chase sequence is really great. This movie visually is so captivating, more than I think people give it credit for, to be honest.
Great. So I think that actually leads quite nicely into our next one. The better future potential for a reboot or a sequel. PJ, you want to take us away?
I mean, look, I'll start it. We all know that there was there was going to be 2 more John Carter movies. Like Stanton had written them already, at least the drafts of them. There's so much more potential in John Carter than I think there is in Prince of Persia. And like, that's not to say video games don't offer potential, but the truth of the matter is like a lot of these video games, especially stuff like Prince of Persia, the stories have never been like the most engaging. It was more about the gameplay. The stories didn't capture my imagination in the same way that reading John Carter did as a child. Like to read all of those Princess of Mars books when I was growing up, and that whole world of Barsoom is so much more interesting. And I think that we left so much on the table still. Like, especially what happens when John goes back, because as we know, once he goes back to Earth, 10 years lapses, right? So when he goes back, what's happened to Mars in that time?
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty remarkable, actually, that for all intents and purposes, John Carter ends up being pretty self-contained, and it works as a one-off without the sequels. But there's a world where I would much rather hang out in the world of John Carter than, say, Star Wars. And I love Star Wars, but let's call a spade a spade. Even it didn't help that the movie bombed, but Disney fucking buried it because they were getting the rights to Star Wars. They didn't want another sci-fi franchise to compete with the fact that they were bringing in the OG fantasy space epic, and it shows. Like, they fucking buried it. The marketing was bad. They kind of just turned a blind eye to it, and John Carter got fucking smashed. And that sucks because the potential to do more is there. Now, that's not to say we couldn't see something down the line. I know that Edgar Rice's Burroughs estate has gotten the rights back to the property. They could easily sell it to someone, preferably not fucking Netflix, but like, say, Amazon. Amazon's been really good at doing fantasy and kind of
especially with the Lord of the Rings show coming out, right?
We don't know yet, though. They could buy it.
Look, I'll say this. You don't spend the type of money that you spend on the Lord of the Rings show if you don't think you actually have something to prove with it. Like, that really matters. And I know that they said they have like a 5-year plan that I have to believe they really care. I'm very hopeful for Lord of the Rings. I would love to see a full trailer for it since it drops like weeks from now. But I also know that they're trying to, I know they're trying to play close to vest. Prince of Persia as a world doesn't grab me. Like, what are you going to do with it? We already did the Sands of Time. Like, there's not a lot more I feel like to explore. And now, granted, I've played the games, but it's been decades, I feel like, at this point. So nothing about those games stands out. And as it is, I think that they really put themselves in a position with Prince of Persia that sucks. And I brought it up in the chat while I was watching it. Their ending is a fucking cop-out because every character that went on a journey no longer had that journey other than him. And that sucks. Like, there's nothing good comes from it was all a dream. Like, nothing good comes from reversing your story to the point that literally no one else grew. And so for that alone, Prince of Persia loses me because why would I care to go back? No one grew in it other than Dastan. And even then, he's pretty much just the same.
The same dude, yeah.
John Carter had an arc.
One thing about the ending of Prince of Persia that actually saved it for me a little bit is like Prince of Persia starts with writing like some characters are connected through time. And then the same thing comes at the very end. And that sort of it sort of cancels out what happened through most of the movie. But then it gives a line again, like some people, I can't remember what the line is.
Yeah, I think it's some people are connected through time or something very similar.
So it doesn't matter that this adventure never happened time still connects them. It's destiny. And I was like, huh. No movie ever has like saved it with their like final writing on the screen, and that one actually kind of worked.
I mean, it's a beautiful sentiment. I wish that I actually gave a shit though coming out of the movie. like that's my problem. It's like at the end of the day, I just wish that I actually cared. But you know.
That's why
I tried.
I kind of have.
I know you did.
I think with like Inception and Tenet and like a lot of these like time travel or multiverse or like even Star Wars with World Between Worlds, there's a lot of it that I kind of gravitate away from because of that point you made, BJ, of who grows from it other than the person that took the adventure. And it's just like there's no real character growth other than that one person. And it does, other than Back to the Future, which is like the ultimate fucking time travel story. And with Prince of Persia, there's a reason they stopped making the games in 2010 is because they fucking ran out of ideas.
Yeah,
and no
100%.
one was playing them. They released, I think, like 6 or 7 different games, and they just stopped making them because how much more can you do with a time travel story? There's only so much you can do with it.
That still leaves like 5 or 6 games to adapt for a sequel.
But again,
right,
for the movie.
And to Matty's point, like Back to the Future is such an apt comparison in a way, right? Because the truth of the matter is that at least in Back to the Future's case, everyone grew in that movie in some capacity because the adventure still affected everyone else. Like every character grew in some way. Doc, his parents, his siblings, everyone had some sort of character growth or change due to how Marty affected their lives in the past. Prince of Persia literally undoes all of that because the adventure never happened. So any character growth just doesn't matter.
Yeah. And even when they talk
storytelling.
About
what
when they
bad storytelling?
His like Tusk following his heart. It's like, so he's essentially the same person that he's always been. He's just coming to a realization that he needs to follow his heart. He's not changing at all. He's just taking a different perspective on things.
He just saw his uncle try to kill his brother, so that pretty much affects him.
What's the like? Is this the worst example of a time travel movie outside of that Nicolas Cage movie Next?
Oh, be careful, Lego's in the chat. She might.
No, and I don't look. I love Nick Cage, but Next is another prime example of doing the thing where it's all a dream and none of what happens because everything in that movie, spoiler alert, ends up being a vision that he's having.
I feel like, and as much as I love this movie so much, Click also suffers a bit of that.
Yeah. And look, William, I'm not slandering Nick Cage. I love Nick Cage. Like, you guys have no idea how much I love Nick Cage. This is not like I'm going out here talking shit about him. I'm just talking about the movie storytelling.
Yeah, this isn't like Matty hates Lord of the Rings. PJ does not hate Nick Cage.
No, not even a little bit. Like, I love Nick Cage.
And right on cue.
Look, Lego, number 1, sorry for the spoiler alert. Number 2, Next is certainly a fucking movie that exists. That's all I can say. I saw that shit in theaters.
Yeah.
I'm gonna try a little bit more to talk in defense of Prince of Persia. I think the fact that there's no real source material could be its advantage because John Carter has
a video game.
There's a whole video game series.
Yeah, but no one gives a shit about video game adaptations. You can just look what Assassin's Creed did. This is like
Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat is do not ever talk shit about Mortal Kombat. But you can pretty much, you got time travel and you got a video game adaptation. You can do anything with a sequel to Prince of Persia. Just give someone a clean slate. No one will give a shit if it doesn't follow the games. You could think of a whole new story for that one. As with John Carter, they definitely have to stay true to the source material. But again, the source material is so damn good that, yeah, the future potential for sure is going to John Carter. I just had to say that.
I'm going to save my counterpoint for the next argument, for the next category, because I do have a counterpoint to that, but it fits more in there when we talk about the story and the lore of everything. And also, Lego, real quick, that he is in another time travel movie. It's a really bad one. It's called Jiu-Jitsu.
I really have a soft spot for jujitsu.
I need to see that. I haven't seen it yet.
It's so bad. It's great. I was watching it with our friend Jeff Alterman and a couple of others, and the twist at the end where you find out.
Oh no! Wait!
I'm not gonna say what happens where you find out who Nick Cage really is. Literally 10 minutes before, I said who I thought he was gonna be, just off the cuff, and it turned out to be who it was, and I was like,
"Wait at me when I can come back."
You're good. You
good.
Also, can we also talk? If we're talking time travel movies, I want to put some respect on the Butterfly Effect's name. What a fucking cool concept that actually works. I think that is a movie that we overlook a lot because people are like Ashton Kutcher in a dramatic role. Actually, that movie kind of slaps. I think he's great in it. And it's a very dark version of the time travel tale that I enjoy very, very much.
Yeah. I need to go back and rewatch that.
Ashton was pretty freaking awesome in that one as well. That's one of like his better performances I think ever, maybe.
Yeah.
So should we get to this final, I guess, like the finishing blow?
I think we should. The final round.
So the final round
movie had the better lore or story.
I'm going to tell you right now, it is John Carter because Prince of Persia movie. Jarvi, you saying about the story, the source material. Prince of Persia didn't stick to it at all. The Sands of Time video game and the Sands of Time movie, completely different story. In the game, like I think it's
okay though.
When he releases the sands, the whole of Persia become like these demon-like monsters, and he has to go and fight them off. This one, it's just
why didn't they do that?
Right?
That sounds better though. I haven't played the games, but
and like he has to discover all about the sands of time, and his uncle. I don't even think it's his uncle in the game. What is his Nazim in the film? He's called Vizier, and like he is exactly what you want from like a shit Weasley villain. Like in the first game anyway, he's a really good shit weasel, but like they just took absolutely nothing from it. So I'm going John Carter solely on they took the title of the game, they took the concept of the game, everything else they just went fuck it. So John Carter's getting my vote.
I think when it comes to story and lore, Prince of Persia, like I kind of enjoy where the story goes, but when it comes to lore, I feel like I didn't really learn anything about like the society, the culture. Well, of course, like with John Carter, everything's happening on Mars, so it's all like new and novel. This is supposed to be happening in like the 9th century Persia, something like that. But John Carter, yeah.
To your point of like it all takes place on Mars, can we just talk about like that opening line and Willem Dafoe's whole like little prologue monologue, just setting up the world, and it's like Barsoom, like Mars or what you perceive to be Mars, but we know like immediately I'm already drawn in because it's Willem Dafoe.
Like Harry Potter. It's like the first episode of Harry Potter. You like, and they spend so much time in the real world. Like I think it's like at least half an hour before they get to Mars. And it's just building the character of John Mars, giving us it's 30 minutes to Mars. Oh no! And you brought up Jared Leto, Matty. What the hell is happening?
I just quoted Arnold.
No, and I gotta say, man, to the point of the lore of it all, I just want to take a moment to commend how great it is having the idea that Daryl Sabra actually plays Edgar Rice Burroughs, who is John Carter's nephew, who is reciting the stories that his uncle told him. Like, what a fucking cool concept of how the stories came to be. How fucking fun is that? Like, what a cool thing to do. And I really love him in it. And like the reveal that, you know, the whole time he thinks that he's been brought out there because John's died. And then he realizes, no, he's like the last person there to protect John. Like, what a pivot in that story. And then him deciding that he'll take it all through to the end and like tell this story. It's great, dude. It works so well.
Yeah, and the way that they built up like the societal norms of the Tharks, like the first time you see the babies born, like it's such a like an alien concept to us that he sees them born and then they're thrown into the people, and you have to pick out your own pretty much son or daughter out of a pile, which is like it's such a like well thought, well crafted.
Yeah, and then they fucking
Society.
kill the rest. It's so dark. It's such a dark
it is
moment.
dark. It is dark.
PLD coming in here, checking in, saying we've been talking shit about Lord of the Rings and Nick Cage. That is imperatively not true. In fact, I went out of my way to say I am not slandering Nick Cage. I was slandering.
He said I think he's asking if I was slandering Nick Cage. PLD, I would like to think that our friendship has gotten to the point now where you know me enough to know that I would never, ever, ever do that.
I think that we
let
need
that happen
PLD
here.
to be
We
blocked
don't
from
do
the
that here.
chat. Can someone like block PLD from his own chat and suspend it for like
he could
5
probably
minutes?
unblock himself, and like, I just don't want to deal with that level of aggravation.
That's fair. It's fair, but PLD, you're on the fucking list. We're watching you, motherfucker. Go on vacation.
Yeah, get out of the chat. Like, actually have fun with your family and be on fucking holiday, dude. But I gotta say, if there's one thing that this conversation and like talking about John Carter has made me, and going back and rewatching John Carter has made me realize, some of these movies that we deem as flops or bombs, a lot of it can be down to other factors other than story or bad acting or bad directing. Sometimes it can just be a fucking case of circumstance, like shitty circumstances, like PJ was saying. Like, they were Disney at the same time they were buying Star Wars, and ultimately we could have got we did get a really fucking great movie that should have been better. That should have been bigger. Sorry, and
sorry.
And it's a fucking shame, but it actually taught me to like give movies like this a chance more, not just fucking write it off just because it didn't do well at the box office. I think that's something a lot of people can learn from.
You know, the only petition I have ever signed was the one to get John Carter a sequel. Like, I don't sign online petitions, but there was one like after the movie came out and it bombed, and I signed that one. That's the only one that I've signed.
Was there actually a survey for that?
Yeah, there was like a petition for a sequel for John Carter. Yeah.
I hate what happened to that movie. I'm always going to be bitter what happened to that movie because I always find it such a special film. And the more that we're talking about it, and what Matty just said is so true. People write off movies because of the box office bomb of it all instead of the actual quality of the movie. And that sucks. And like, this movie deserved better. And I'm glad that it's kind of found a bigger audience over time. I know that I'm a big proponent for it. I had this long fucking thread on its 10th anniversary of like how that movie moved me a decade to it coming out. Like, it's a special movie, man. It really is. And I think that it really goes to stand. We're still doing the better director, right? Or are we not? I don't remember.
But better story and lore.
Yeah,
okay.
We can find better director.
Look, you can talk about director.
I'm going to just say it right now. Andrew Stanton chased this for the longest time. He was so passionate about the material. He was so passionate about the story, and it comes through in the movie. At least in my opinion, it shows how much he really crafted something that he cared about immensely. Mike Newell doesn't really care about Prince of Persia. He's clearly a director for hire, and that's not a dig at him. But like the guy who directed 4 Weddings at a Funeral, also doing Prince of Persia, not really like the upgrade that I see going from one to the other. Whereas the dude who did WALL-E built an entire world out of WALL-E that we loved. I see him as a world builder. I see him as someone who crafts epic and exciting stories. And he did the same thing with John Carter, and his passion just shines through for me so frequently, down to who he cast, who he worked, like the way he put it together. And say what you will about how much they spent on the movie, but like his whole idea of taking the Pixar model of do your movie, then tear it down and reshoot it for things that aren't working to try to streamline the story is something that we do now all the time. What he was doing was a not normal concept. Now, Marvel and a lot of these bigger studios, they actually put aside time for reshoots. It's already budgeted and scheduled in before they shoot their movies because they know that they can go back and try to rejigger the films. Stanton was doing that before everyone else was doing it. Like that is a game-changing sort of thing. I know that sounds crazy, but when you're not forcing reshoots and you're actually budgeting them in and you're realizing, hey, I think we can do this better. How about we pivot and try this? That's a really great form of storytelling. Ultimately, because it means you can actually cut your story up a little bit more and hone it more. That matters. And so to me, John Carter is the poster child of do the thing you want to do and do it well, and your passion and your story will come through.
You're allowing yourself more room to adapt the story, make the world bigger. You're not just limiting yourself to this is the story, this is how it goes, this is what you're going to get. And I feel like having multiple interpretations to a story is something I always love. It's something I always go into deeply when I'm thinking about and talking about Star Wars, different interpretations of different stories. And I think it's a really important thing to do. And yeah, you're right. John Carter and Stanton, they were doing it before pretty much anyone. So I don't think, even from a filmmaker's and a storyteller's perspective, I don't think this film gets the credit that it should do. And it really, really, really should.
And what a great ending it has. Like the way that John Carter double crosses the Therns. Like I truly did not remember the ending at all. I was like, oh no, he's leading them into the tomb. That's where they get him. Boom, he's not really dead. He's there. He double crossed the double cross. And I was like, shit, that is some awesome storytelling right there.
Dude, and again, like how hopeful too. Because it's such a tragic ending in a lot of ways of him finally getting married and finally falling in love and like finally changing and seeing the, because we didn't talk about it. He was a Confederate soldier. Like that's an important thing to this whole story is that he realizes the wrong of it all in the things that he was involved in and seeing the way that things are on Barsoom and how much that changes him. That matters. I mean, I'm not trying to say that we should be Confederate sympathisers, but at the same time, no, I know how that sounds because, I mean, obviously as the one American here, like as the one American here in our Civil War history, we shouldn't be sympathizers, but I think there's something to be said about trying to make sure that people can change. And maybe it's not the best story arc, but I think it matters. And I think that there's something inherently good about trying to change and be a better person and admit that you did something terribly fucking wrong. And like to have that moment again, I think it's built into that moment when his family is finally murdered and the way that he realizes everything he did led to this. Everything he did was wrong. And because of that, his family suffered. Because of that, he suffered. Look at what became of him. And for him to finally change and like acknowledge that in some capacity fucking matters.
Yeah, 100%. As another great movie once said, a man can change his stars.
A man can change it. And he has to follow his feet.
So
I had to get a Nice Tale reference in somewhere.
I like it. I like that what you're doing that. And I want the record to show that this does not mean that I am a Confederate sympathizer. I think everything that they did was fucking awful. Let's just be very clear right now. The Confederate Army was a monstrosity.
I feel like you're addressing one certain person in the chat that would have this opinion.
The movie itself, for a second, actually, like when Mark Strong is talking to Taylor, like John Carter, he says like he calls him sir, and he says, "Oh, it must be from the South." That was they all even sort of allude to that, like people are polite there. It's like a positive thing to say about them. But yeah, that's where it ends. About the Confederate part, I mean.
Yeah. So what we're saying is that none of us here support the Confederate movement in any capacity or the atrocities that they committed along the way.
No, we understand the need for personal growth and development and change, and it can happen with anyone, even Confederate soldiers.
So this has definitely been a close match. Do you guys want to know the score?
I absolutely want to know the score.
I'm dying to know the score.
It was a very close one. I think Prince of Persia actually lost it. It's been the greatest loss in the history of the class action show. So 15-0, John Carter is the winner.
Didn't you give 1 or 2 to Prince of
Nope.
Persia?
Did not. Jake Gyllenhaal was one that I figured I would give this to. Did not give it to. Better Future was one that I tried to argue for. Definitely did not give that one to Prince of Persia. So there we go. We figured this. They actually do match up pretty well when you think about it. But hey, the categories, these are the deciders.
Yep.
just
Styles
happy
make
that
fights,
10
as we like
years-
to say.
Yeah, and I'm happy that 10 years later, here we are putting all the love to the honestly misunderstood, underseen masterpiece that is John Carter. Yeah, I'm going to throw that word out there. The underseen masterpiece that is John Carter. Also, I just want to take this moment to really say, hey, Disney, fuck you changing the title. Yeah, you, Disney, deciding that John Carter of Mars was not a good enough title, or a Princess of Mars was not a good enough title because Mars Needs Mom bombed at the box office. What were you thinking? You totally just tried to sell a movie about a character that no one had any fucking idea of really outside of people like me who grew up reading this character and thought that somewhere along the way that was enough to sell the movie. You couldn't have the balls enough to be like, actually, maybe we should tell people it takes place on Mars because it was so clear from your marketing that you didn't know how to sell it. Fuck you, Disney. Fuck you.
I love that your dog's trying to bleep you, but it's not working.
Thank you, Dipper. Come here. You want to come say hi?
Woulda. That's Woulda right there.
That is my Woulda. Yeah, there he is in the background.
There he is.
Very, very fast, very short, low to the ground.
Yeah. That's you, Dipper, in a nutshell.
So, I want to bring this up from Refism here before we get out of here. John Carter TV series.
Yes, Refism.
They could, like, now I would actually be on board with that because the lines between television and movies are way more blurred. And sure, yeah, I think we talked about it. Amazon, go ahead, give us all that money, give us that shit.
I like that William even says to my point, if Mars was in the title, I would have seen it in theaters.
There you go.
Yeah, see? And you know, shout out to Andrew Stanton, who was like, I'm still putting the title in the movie. It's at the end, but the last title of the movie is John Carter of Mars.
John Carter of Mars, yep.
Is it really because of the Mars?
Yes.
Was it Moms on Mars or
Mars Needs Moms, and then Mission to Mars, and
Mars Needs Moms?
They like, for whatever reason, Disney had a bad track record with movies with Mars in the title.
Mars Attacks.
And well, that's Fox. Well, now that is Disney, technically speaking. But the point is that for whatever reason, Disney along the way had a couple of bad box office bombs with Mars in the title. And so they were like, well, that's clearly the problem, is that Mars was in the title. No one wants to go see movies set on Mars. No, that had fucking nothing to do with it. No one was asking for Mission to Mars, a movie based on a Disney attraction directed by Brian De Palma. Look, no one was asking for that movie.
Nope.
And I kind of like that movie, but no one wanted it. And furthermore, no one wanted your shitty fucking creepy mocap Mission to Mars movie or Mars Needs Mom movie based on a book using that creepy fucking technology that Zemeckis was using for like Polar Express with the dead eyes and the uncanny valley. No one wanted that movie. So much so that you guys killed a fucking Yellow Submarine remake Zemeckis was supposed to direct. So don't tell me that Mars was the problem.
Oh, you could have named it Barsoom, John Carter of Barsoom, if you don't want to use Mars.
Right. You could have named it literally anything. Once again, proving Disney just didn't give a shit. I'm also just so glad we're starting to get past that fucking monstrosity of a thing where we were like, we're just going to name every movie after its lead. John Carter, Jack Ryan, Jack Reacher. Like, what a terrible, terrible thing that we were doing for the longest time. Actually give something. Lego, Yellow Submarine, like they were actually going to do a remake, and there you can see the concept art. Actually, I'll send it to you on Twitter and show you, like, there's links you can see they were gonna remake the animated movie, but in like the motion capture CGI world of what Zemeckis was doing at the time. And it's actually super cool. If you guys look into it, we really kind of missed out. I know there's a lot of people who are like, it looked like it was going to be a little too real and like not as 70s weird, but I actually think it was going to be like kind of dark and cerebral in a way only Zemeckis could have done. And I know Cary Elwes was one of the people cast as one of the Beatles. Like, it had a pretty good cast to boot. Like, it got very far into production before Disney pulled the plug. So
They got to start doing that.
Yeah, they really do. Like, it was around the time they also pulled the plug on that David Fincher, Brad Pitt, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So,
all right, I got
Disney
a versus for you guys. Firefly season 2 or TV series of John Carter?
John Carter, because fuck
John
Joss Whedon.
Carter.
It's really that fucking simple.
Yeah.
I really love Firefly.
Take Joss Whedon out of it. I'm more inclined to be like Firefly, but
I think that's what most people would have picked. Fuck I'm not talking about Joss Whedon. I'm talking about Firefly. I know you can't separate them, but you could.
Here's what I'll say about that. I know that we're like rambling at this point, but Jarvi, this is exactly what you wanted. You wanted me to bring what I do on Two Mediocre White Dudes here. The truth of the matter is that like separating art from the artist is always a thing that I try to do. But in the capacity of Firefly, Joss Whedon's entire DNA is way too embedded in that show. And in light of what Nathan Fillion just said, where he's like, look, I'd work with Joss again. I don't want it. Fuck Nathan Fillion for saying that. Fuck Joss Whedon for the stuff that he did to too many women. I just, Firefly, as much as I love it, is too embedded with what Joss Whedon is, and I could never give back to that unless someone found a way to get him out of it.
Fair enough.
Let's end on this note.
Hell yeah, Mike.
All right. PJ, thank you so much for coming on, man. Like
thanks for having me.
If anyone was the guy to bring on to talk about John Carter, it would be you. Talking about Bruce Campbell, you.
We talked about Prince of Persia as well, although we only talked about John Carter.
Did we?
Because
fuck Prince of Persia at this point, really.
You guys, I have to say this. I actually really, really do enjoy Prince of Persia, and I'm kind of sad that he got beaten that hard. That's what happens.
So, PJ, if you want to let the folks know where they can find you.
Twitter, Instagram, PJ_Campbell, Letterboxd too, if you guys are into, seeing the shit I'm watching, because obviously people actually around these parts care about that. And you can find me hanging out with the terribly unprofessional and terribly dishonorable PLD over on Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film. I believe our new episode drops tomorrow. We're going to be talking Return of the King. It is our longest episode to date, with plenty of tangents and all the things that you have come to love or hate, depending on if you hate listen to the show about what we're doing. I know. But I want to put it out there. There's probably people who hate listen to me because have you heard me talk? I understand it. And that's beside the point. But thank you guys so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. I hope to come back because the truth of the matter is I like hanging out with you guys. And look, it was better than PLD. Look at how informed I was. Look at all the information that I gave you. Like I gave you so much to work with.
PLD was slandering Yoda in the last episode, so you are definitely welcome anytime that he we will kick him off to have you on solely for that fucking reason.
Thank you, my friend.
Jarvi, where can the folks find you, buddy?
On Facebook and Instagram at Richard-Erik with a K Jarvi. And of course, as PJ said, on Letterboxd. I already followed you on Letterboxd just as you talked about it, PJ. So I really gotta see. I gotta see what you actually gave to. What was your score for John Mars? John
3 out of 5. Like I think it's a totally
that low.
So, well, here's what I'll say. I think people. I'm gonna keep tangenting a little bit until we get out of here.
We're not letting you go.
I inherently believe that all movies are at least inherently made to be like a 3-star movie. I think people are so hard on 3 is not a bad thing. 3 ultimately is a totally fine. I would watch it while I'm putting it on in the background if it was on TNT. There are just movies that are like that, and it's okay. I think we live in a world where everything is too black and white. Everyone thinks it's either the best thing ever or the worst thing ever. It's okay to be a middle of the road bad action movie that happens to star Jake Gyllenhaal. So 3 out of 5, it's cool. I'd watch it and it's fine. And that is what it is. Whereas 4, no, 5, no, it doesn't deserve that. But I also don't think it's terribly an embarrassment. And so I wouldn't give it a 1 or a 2.
Yeah. I gave Ambulance a 4.5.
I gave it a 4. So.
All right, Matty, what about you?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter at Matty Gunner, Instagram Matty_Gunner. At the minute, yeah, pretty much just there. Oh yeah, every Thursday and Sunday on the Wild Jones Podcast Network for the ONU MMA show, talking the world of combat sports every week, and that's about it. So, unless either of you gentlemen have any parting words,
PLD,
Yeah, I do,
probably
actually.
we'll be back next week. We will be back live next Tuesday.
and
Also, final words. Fuck PLD. Hashtag blame PLD everywhere.
and on that note.